Well, good morning, everybody. I hope you're doing great. Is everybody awake? Right? Everybody in a good mood? Everybody thawed out? Yeah? Well, I'm Patrick, and I'm the pastor. I'm so glad to be here in church together. It's so good. I want to say hi to all those in our Lakeside building over here, so I'm glad you're there. You're not missing a thing. People in here smell funny, so I'm glad you're there. And I want to say hi to everybody at our Missouri City campus. If you're new there, go by and see Nathan. He'd love to see you. And then, of course, we have our West End campus, and I want to say hi to everybody up there. I was there last week and got to talk about so many exciting things that are happening with the construction project we're building. Based on the Love Well campaign that we did, we're building a gathering space down there in a 1930s building. It's really great. And Keaton texted me this morning and said Joseph is visiting for the very first time at West End. So Joseph, we're glad that you're there. We hope you don't scare you off. Okay, so good. Everyone, what a week, huh? Has this been crazy? It's been amazing, man. I mean, we had power for a while, so we had a refugee camp at our house for a while, and then in the middle of the night we lost. So we stayed at the church all night, the second night, and then we had power but no water, and so that we stayed there. And then none of our pipes busted. I don't know how, really. And it's just been, we're just kind of waiting. You start hearing about pipes busting, and you're just kind of walking around listening for that. And then when the water came back on and we had hot water, how about that first shower, huh? Was that amazing? Wow. At first, I just did not want to get out, and then I realized, no, there's some people in my family that need a shower now. Get out of the shower, get in there. I mean, it's just amazing. What a week, for sure. The hits just keep coming, don't they? I thought 2020 was behind us, and it's not. And my favorite meme, there was a bunch of memes that flow. One of my favorites was the Whataburger meme. Did you see that? Where people were trudging through the snow. And then this is a great meme here. Getting pretty tired of living through historic events. That's Tommy Boy for all you young people who have no sense of what's going on in the world. Right there, Tommy Boy. So it's great. Hey, it was exciting. Really, when this thing happened and we got connected with the Office of Emergency Management here in the Richmond campus, we were able to establish a warming center, as you've heard here in Richmond today. But it was amazing. It really makes these buildings very tangible, don't they? And we build these buildings so we can help people in all kinds of ways. And the warming center was incredible. I just want to thank Tanya Whitaker and Bob Page and Terrace Clayton in our missions department who really stood that up. Jonathan Kelley was amazing. Jonathan is our executive director of facilities, and he's out in the middle of the night with the OEM people trying to find a leak in the water line so we can get water pressure. It's crazy. So Jonathan and King on our staff. And then we had a great volunteer, Suzanne Watley. She was amazing up here all night. I don't know how she did it. And just crazy how much time and energy and effort went into helping people. Man, really just helping people, just incredible. Stay overnight. I mean, it was like a war zone in here. It was like triage. It was crazy. So thank you for doing that. I was so proud of our church standing up and doing something great. I know many of you are watching from your homes today. You're trying to put your lives and your homes back together. And so I'm glad you're tuning in for sure. I know my mom's watching. She's going to email me. I'll probably get an email before this service is over about my beard. Because I didn't shave for a week, and I'm thinking, hey, that's pretty handsome. That's what and then it started itching. I said, I'm going to give this a try. And Lisa said I could. I didn't ask for permission. I'm just saying she said I could. But my mom will not like this at all. So I'm going to give it some more time. I realized this morning that I'm every day that it grows out, I'm becoming more and more looking like Santa Claus. And my beard is white. There's no salt and pepper. It's mostly salt, no pepper. And so it's crazy. We're all changing through this stuff. And I think it's no mistake that we're going through the book of Nehemiah. Nehemiah is the story of a guy that's really hit after hit, trouble after trouble, time after time. He's kind of encountering so much challenge to accomplish something amazing, really. So Nehemiah is overcoming. It's about overcoming, and we talked about this series being called Let's Rebuild, because that's what we're doing. A lot of you today are putting new sheetrock back in your house or wherever you're at. helping your neighbors. I mean, really, the worst of times brings out the best in people. And I was just so excited to see us jump in and help one another. And that was really the story of Nehemiah. And I want to show you something today that I think will really help and encourage your faith in a big way, because I think we all need this, especially during troubled times. Now, if you didn't see last week, you should go back, because there was a great history lesson there. Most of you did good on your exam. Congratulations. A lot of history in that deal. But basically, here's the recap. Nehemiah was a Hebrew slave to a Persian king named Artaxerxes, and he held a high position. It was the position of cupbearer, which means he tasted the wine and the food of the king, so make sure nobody poisoned him. So Nehemiah was a trusted slave. But Nehemiah heard, if you read chapter 1, this is your homework, by the way, read the book of Nehemiah. If you read chapter 1, what you'll see is that a report came back from Jerusalem, his hometown in Judah, the southern kingdom, and the walls of the city were torn down. This was a terrible thing because it made the people very vulnerable. And here it goes again. If they don't rebuild those walls, another force is going to come in and take over the Israelites and take these Hebrews out of there. So it was really a big deal. Really, most important was that Nehemiah was concerned about the spiritual condition of his people. And he wanted to reform the people, to say, listen, let's follow Yahweh, let's follow God, let's trust in the Lord, and it's those kind of things. So what we see here is a powerful thing. I'm going to make a point here. What we see here is a powerful thing that's true about you and me. And that is, when our heart is broken, and we had that happen this week, when our heart is broken for other people, it's a compelling force in our life. In fact, it's more compelling than self-preservation. It's more compelling than doing something for yourself. When you see somebody that's vulnerable and hurting, it is, for most people, it is a compelling force to action. We got to do something here. And so when we pick up the story of Nehemiah, what he wants to do is go back, this is unbelievable, go back to Jerusalem and rebuild the walls. And the walls were quite an amazing task. They were 2.5 miles long, they were 12 feet high, made of stone, and they were 2.5 feet thick. So this is not an easy task. But the problem was, he was a slave, and the king needed him. And so he had this great idea, because he's moved by this compassion for others, to risk something. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. Let me show you the story. In Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 1, it says, in the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was brought for him, I took the wine and gave it to the king, and I had not been sad in his presence before. So the king asked me, why does your face look so sad when you are not ill? This can be nothing but sadness of the heart. And then he says this, I was very much afraid. So let me set this up for you. So he goes to the king. The reason we're told it was the month of Nisan in the Jewish calendar is that 4 months had gone by since he'd really heard about this report. So for 4 months he'd been stewing. 4 months he'd been thinking. 4 months he'd been struggling and wondering what he could do, if anything, to help his people back in Judah. And so he's 4 months, and finally he got sad. And the reason I think Nehemiah tells us that he was sad in the presence of the king is that is something you did not do. It was illegal to be sad in the presence of the king, because the kings were very egocentric, and they thought, I am so great, nobody could possibly be sad in my presence. I mean, you didn't want to drag people down. It's kind of like when people are with me. That didn't go over in the first service either. So, yeah, it's that kind of deal. So he was so heartbroken, he could no longer hide his pain. And the king noticed it and said, you're not sick, man. What's going on? Now, that tells us a couple things about the rapport that he had with the king, because Nehemiah was asked, like Artaxerxes cared about Nehemiah's emotional state. I mean, that's an amazing thing for a king to care about a slave's emotional state. I mean, that was kind of the thing. And so he asked, what's going on? You're not sick. And then soon as he's asked what's going on, this phrase, I was very much afraid. And fear is the thing we're going to talk about today, because fear is something we all have to deal with. And Nehemiah had a lot of fear. He had a fear, and the reason Nehemiah tells us about the fear is because fear is the thing that could keep him from actually doing the thing he felt like he needed to do. And fear is the thing in your life and in my life that hinders us the most. Fear is the enemy of faith. The biggest enemy of faith in God is your fear and my fear. It's not doubt, it's not ignorance, it is fear. Fear is a powerful, powerful thing. And I don't know, maybe it's because I'm getting old, but it seems like anxiety and fear and compulsion and all the things that the younger generation is dealing with today is becoming more and more of a powerful thing. And if you don't understand how to combat and deal with the fear in your life, then it's going to control you. In fact, a lot of the decisions that you make in life are about your fear. Because one of the things that's for sure in our life is that when we feel fear, the most compelling need we have is to not feel fear. And we'll do anything to get rid of that anxiety or that fear, whether it's self-medicating, ignoring, changing our situation. We cannot live long in this extended state of anxiety and fear. So this is a powerful thing. He doesn't just tell us this historical narrative that tells us here's how things work, here's what's going on. He wanted you and I to deal with. God, as he wrote this down, said, I want you to understand that I was very much afraid. Because the king could have said, off with his head. He's afraid because he's going to lose his job. He's going to lose his comfortable place. He's going to lose his position. He's going to lose his room in the palace. I mean, everything. I was very much afraid. And that's what you and I are mostly afraid of. It's loss. Fear of rejection, fear of a job loss, fear of a relationship loss, fear of a child being lost. I mean, fear driving. Not all fear is bad. We ought to listen to it. I'm just saying we can't be controlled by it. So I was very much afraid, but I said to the king, may the king live forever. Always throw that compliment in there. I'm about to tell you something, but I'm really rooting for you, king. I hope you don't die when somebody poisons you, okay? Why should my face not look sad when the city where my ancestors are buried lies in ruins and its gates have been destroyed by fire? King, I can't pretend like nothing's wrong. I mean, this is it. And this fear that he had of the king and what he's lost wasn't going to control Nehemiah. He overcame it, and we're going to see how in just a second. He overcame it in a way that he could say, but I got to ask you, king, I got to tell you this. How can I not be sad when all my countrymen back in Judah are suffering so greatly in this vulnerable state in Jerusalem? They need the walls rebuilt, and you're fixing to see that. So I want you to think about, in just your own life, the role fear plays. We all have fear. Listen, I'm not afraid. Well, you're not aware. Fear is an issue for all of us, but it's not easily recognized oftentimes because it has a secondary emotion. I'm going to go Dr. Phil on you here, but listen, fear isn't something that I could relate to in my life. It's like, I don't ever feel scared, but oftentimes I feel angry. Anger is the secondary emotion to fear. And so the worst thing you could say to an angry person, which I had plenty of that, is, why are you so mad? My wife would say that to me. Why are you so mad? Well, that just made me more mad. Because I thought you ought to be as mad as I am, but since you're not mad and you don't understand why I'm mad, I'll just get mad for you. You know, that kind of deal. And I double up on the mad. I'm oversharing now. We just celebrated 33 years of marriage yesterday. Right there, that's my wife. You can't see her in the other campuses. That's her. Ha! So my wife learned to quit asking me, why are you so mad? Instead, she asked this question, which is so diffusing to me. She says, So when I get upset and mad and I'm getting ramped up, do y'all get ramped up? I get ramped up. I just get ramped. And the more I talk about it, I just get more ramped up. Now I'm really oversharing. You probably need to find another church. But I got this ramped up thing. I get going. And the more I talk about it, the worse I get. And my wife will totally take away the power of that by saying this, asking this question. So what are you scared of? And then it just changed. Instead of saying, why are you so mad? Which now I'm mad because you don't get it. What are you scared of? Redirects me emotionally. And I go, oh, let me tell you what I'm scared of. And I have to think about, I'm not sure what I'm scared of. I hadn't thought about it as fear. I'm just mad. And all of a sudden, I start thinking about all the things I'm scared of. And it is that anger for me that's a trigger that says, you're not mad, you're afraid. So what is it for you? Maybe it's depression, maybe it's OCD, maybe it's an addiction. You know, maybe something, it's a crippling thing, this fear thing. It can really keep you from becoming all that you want to be in life. It really, really can. I mean, it's got to be addressed. And you might say, like men especially are terrible about this, saying, well, I'm not scared of anything. And you're not aware. Like I'm scared of mice. Are you scared of mice? I'm scared of all rodents. My wife is not scared of those. She's scared of snakes. But I'm scared of a rodent. She told me she would divorce me if I brought one of those rubber snakes and put it in the dryer, which I desperately wanted to do. I do not recommend this. 33 years. But a mouse walk through here, I'm done. I'm gone. It's over. Those things can kill you. Seriously, they can kill you. They get in your eye. I mean, it's terrible. So I get it, man. I think we've got to come to a place if we're going to overcome our fear and not make decisions based on our fear is we have to understand our fear and what we're scared of. And it's a very diagnostic question. What are you afraid of? What's causing you to drink so much? What's causing you to act that way? What's causing you to try to control your circumstances, right? And for example, for Nehemiah, it was a while, he was about to ask. Listen to what he's about to do. He's a slave, a Hebrew slave, about to ask the king for his freedom to go build a wall around a city that the king didn't care about, for a people the king didn't care about. It was a wild card. What would be the outcome? And there you have it. There's where our fear is, when we can't predict the outcome. When we can't predict the outcome, we get scared. Now, I'm a future tripper. I've confessed this to you before. I have this great skill. I'm gifted and talented at it, at projecting the future. And by the way, I never project a happy ending. I don't know why that is about my personality. Maybe my mom dropped me as a kid. I don't know, but something ain't right with me. And so when I'm looking at the future, I never look at what possibly could be a positive outcome of my current situation. I'm always future tripping on my negative perceived outcomes. My wife's very good about also saying, well, you're just future tripping. You don't know that that's going to happen, which is aggravating. And I'll say, well, yeah, but if it does happen, I won't be surprised, but you're going to be shocked. There's some small victory in that for me. I don't know why, but it's that kind of deal. We kind of are able to take what we perceive to be the future of our current crisis and bring it into our present and have an emotional experience negatively over something that hasn't happened yet, but we believe it will. And then you throw on top of that a pandemic and then Snowmageddon, and then all of a sudden we are done. It's like, oh my gosh. See, so oftentimes we make decisions, this is what I want you to see today, we make decisions not based on what's right or wrong or what's best, but we make decisions on what we fear the least. And we take the path of the least resistance to make a decision, believing because it makes me feel better to go this way, this is the right way to go. And we miss so many of God-given opportunities for us to do something amazing in our life and have an outcome we could never predict because we're always chasing our own fear. We hedge our bets. We don't like to go all in. We like to have a plan B. And we don't factor in our faith in this process. And Nehemiah said, I can't let the people suffer anymore. So the king looked at him and said this, what do you want? Now, this is where a lot of us fail in our fear. Like we have the fear to say, yeah, I'm sad, I got some things going on. Now, some people minimize it. Like if I saw your downtrodden face and I say, what's going on? What's wrong? Oh, nothing. It's no big deal. It's not. And we all sort of minimize it because we don't want people to feel sorry for us, or we don't want to deal with it ourselves. And all of a sudden, this point happens. What do you want? What's going on with you? And Nehemiah could have chickened out at any point, right? Any point. So he gets to the moment. This is such a dramatic moment, guys. He gets to this moment where the king, Artaxerxes, is asking him, what is it that you want? And he's going to ask him for some freedom. And once that's out of his mouth, there's no unringing the bell. There's no unasking it. You can't confuse, I want to go to Jerusalem, with any other line that sounds like it. You're out there. And this is the posture we don't like. You're out there. And all of a sudden, here's what he says. Then I prayed to the God of heaven. Like, I was very much afraid. And the king asked me, well, what do you want? And I had to tell him. But before I told him, I prayed. Now, this may be all you came for today. This is a good exercise. When you are self-aware enough and not in denial, and you understand that you have fear surfacing up in your life, and it just comes on you like a wave. You get overwhelmed emotionally with this deal. And you say, oh man, I don't know, maybe this is it. I'm just gonna pray to the God of heaven. What did Nehemiah pray? We don't know. But it was quick because it was right in the middle of the dialogue. You ever thrown up those emergency prayers? Lord, help me. Don't let me say something stupid. You know, when I'm talking to my wife or my kids or somebody that works with me, it's like, God, help me. It's like, there's no going back. I got to go forward. I got to lean into this thing. I got to say something here. God, help me. God, rescue me. God, save me. Maybe it's a prayer of declaration, which is, God, I know you're good. God, I know you're going to provide. God, I know you're with me. I don't know what he prayed. Maybe he just said, oh, Lord. That's all he could get out. Oh, Lord. You see, there's a battle going on in your soul, in your emotions. In fact, Paul says it this way in Ephesians. He says, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against rulers and against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. So you have a battle going on. Now, I don't know what you believe about the devil. I believe the devil happens to be real. And I think if the devil can keep you scared, he can keep you in a place where you'll just eventually wither away. You won't rise up at all. You'll just wither away. That you'll always be a slave to your fear, because you don't like feeling that way. So there is a battle going on. We have a spiritual battle. The battle that you face is spiritual in nature, but emotional in its content. So this battle that you're feeling in your soul, this emotion that you have and I have, when things that we can't control happen in our life and we don't know how are we going to recover? We can't even find pipe fittings. And these poor people who are getting these unbelievable bills for their gas. How? All of a sudden, and fear takes over. And we have this spiritual battle going on. And what am I going to believe? And how am I going to act? And what's my decision-making basis? And it's an emotional in its content. It's like, okay. So Nehemiah took all that into account. Lord, help me. That's all you got to say. Lord, help me. In my fear. Listen, most of us, I'm just rambling now, but listen. Most of us are praying for God to take away the scary thing that makes us fearful. And maybe that's okay. Maybe you should do that. I do that. I can't help it. But maybe the better thing to do, or where you'll see your faith really explode and become very relevant, is to say, you're going to walk with me through this valley of the shadow of death, and I'll fear no evil. For thy sword is with me. Thy cup provides for me. And you make a place for me, a pasture, green pasture. You see, and maybe it's not, God, take away the scary things so I don't feel scared. It's maybe, my God, I feel scared, help me. Help me, lead me, guide me. Don't let me be crippled by this emotion. But let me go and walk through this valley knowing that you're good and that you love me and that you want me. Here's what Nehemiah said to the king after he prayed and he understood this battle, and the answer to the king, if it pleases the king, he's still very respectful. And if your servant has found favor in his sight, then let him send me to the city of Judah where my ancestors are buried so that I can rebuild it. Let me go to the city. There it is. There's no unsaying it. And you don't know what's going to happen. He said, if it pleases the king, if I could go back to Judah and help where my ancestors are buried and help my people. And then there was this moment of silence where he's looking at the king, seeing if he's going for his sword, seeing if his face changes. But the king let him go. And it reminds me in Luke where Jesus said, you have not because you ask not. And the reason you don't ask is because you're scared. We don't ask because we're scared. And all of a sudden, Nehemiah gets this pass and papers, and the rest of chapter 2 is about Nehemiah surveying the damage in Judah and Jerusalem and being harassed by a couple people. And then he has this big challenge, and this is where I'll end. He has this big challenge with his own people because he's going to say, we've got to rebuild the city. In fact, here's what he says. Then I said to them, speaking of his own people, you see the trouble we're in? Jerusalem lies in ruins, and its gates have been burned with fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be in disgrace. I also told them about the gracious hand of my God on me and what the king had said to me, which was a miracle. We don't live in that kind of ideal, so we don't understand this. A miracle, what the king had said to me. Is that it? Okay. So I thought there was more. So here's what he did. He went to his people and said, hey, this is where you've got to and I've got to here. We've done this before. He says to them, we cannot live like this anymore. You can't live like this. The walls around Jerusalem are down. People are going to come in here and take our people and put us back into captivity. We've got a chance for freedom. We've got to turn to God. And then we cannot live like this anymore. We've got to rebuild the city, which we don't know that Nehemiah's got any building experience. And he certainly didn't have the resources to rebuild this. And he's trying to get his people to have a vision. So what he's trying to say is this overwhelming scope of work that needs to be done is vital. We've got to rebuild the city. And oftentimes when the work is overwhelming and the scope is too large, we don't go. The mountain ahead of us is so great, we don't want to go on the journey. And he tells them this story. He says, listen, let me tell you, I don't know how we're going to do this. I just know what we're going to do. And oftentimes, listen, now I'm just being mean. Oftentimes, we want God to show us the plan so that we'll go on the journey to experience the miracle, to build our faith. And God's over there going, no, listen, here's what you do. You put your toe in the water, then I'll part it. You go down there to Jerusalem and start putting rocks on top of each other, and then I'll show you how to do it. And we get it reversed. We say, no, God, show me how. How am I going to put my marriage back together? How am I going to get my kids right? How am I going to get a new job? How am I going to pay for this? How am I going to do that? And he's not going to show you how. He's just going to show you what. Walk forward. Keep going. God, I don't know what we're supposed to do, but there's a lot of people cold. What are we supposed to do? Open up a warming center. We don't know how to do that. I know. Open it up. How are we going to feed all these people? How? Anybody got a hamburger in their pocket? Restaurants started. And at the end of the deal, man, we didn't know how it was all going to work, but it was one miracle after another miracle. It was God showing up. It was people being blessed. It's because we just took a step forward. So I don't know how your marriage is going to make it. You ought to go to counseling. I don't know how you're going to get out of that debt, but you ought to get some help. See, God doesn't show us the whole plan because I don't think we'd go on the trip. He just shows us the next step. Oftentimes we suffer from this. I wrote this down, I thought it was good. Oftentimes if the road ahead looks too long or difficult, we just don't go. We live in an information age where we Google the outcome of everything. And if we can't see a successful outcome, we don't go on the journey. And what if Nehemiah had sat up there in Persia with the king going, God, I don't know how we're going to build that wall. I'm going to Google how to build a wall. And if I can't figure out how to build a wall, where are we going to get all the rock? Where are we going to get all the stone? Where are we going to get all the laborers? Really, where are we going to get the people? My people want. And so he could have rotted away and died in the palace wondering how. But he didn't. He said, I don't know how. But here we go. We're just going to walk down there. How do we build a wall, Nehemiah? I don't know. Grab that rock. And you grab that rock. And we're going to make some cement out of something. I don't know how. And you don't need to know how. You know how they responded? I love this. Here it is. They replied, let us start. Let us start. Let us start rebuilding. So they began a good work. See, here's the thing. They didn't know if they could rebuild it. They just knew they were going to start. I don't know how it's going to turn out for you. I just know you got to start. Starting is the hardest part of anything. I've been going to exercise for the last 4 or 5 months. I'm going to start at some point. It's the hardest part. I'm going to eat right. Starting to eat right is the hardest part. But once I get there, the momentum begins to build. Starting is the most difficult thing of anything. And they said, we don't know if we're ever going to build this. I don't know, I'm making this up. But I don't know if we're going to be able to build this wall. Maybe they had more confidence than I think they did, but it's a pretty overwhelming job. I don't know how we're going to do this. All I know is we need to start. What do you need to start? What do you need to start? Are you waiting for the whole plan to come from God or somebody else to tell you, okay, you start, you work it for a couple years, you get a couple promotions, you make some money, you save some, you get a retirement, and this is how it all ends. And you go, oh, I love the ending. That's a great story. I'm going to go and start that journey. You'll never get those answers. Life is too unpredictable, and we live in a broken place where things that should happen don't. But I know this. God is with you, and God loves you, and God has a way, and the reason he's not telling you how, and the reason he's not telling you more than the next step is because he wants you to wake up every single day and depend on him. He doesn't want you to give you a roadmap where you walk away from him and just read your roadmap or your phone. He wants you to get up every day and have a conversation. Okay, God, what do we do? Okay, he's going to show you the next thing, and you take that step. Okay, God, here I am. What do we do now? Okay, we're going to go over here now. Okay, now what do we do? Okay, we're going to go back here. Okay, God, where are we going? And all of a sudden, step after step after step gets put in front of you, and then all of a sudden you look back and you say, look what God did. Look what God did. Look what he did for me. And I thought it was all going to be a disaster. Thank God my wife talked me out of that. And you just take a step and then see what happens. And you wake up in the morning and say, okay, God, what step you want me to take today? It's not every day. Don't get excited. But God will show you a way. He'll order your steps. He'll make a way where there is no way. He'll put a story together you wouldn't believe, and you'll be right in the middle of it. But you've got to deal with your fear. Where do you need to start? What are you scared of? Be honest about it. Maybe that's what you pray. God, I'm just scared. And see what happens. Let's pray together. Will you pray with me? Father in heaven, thank you for loving me. Thank you for giving me so much. Thank you that you don't answer my how questions, but you lead me day by day. I know many here are trying to figure out how to put their homes back together and how to put their lives back together. May they not be overwhelmed with fear or problems, but today, would you encourage their hearts? Would you remind them of your presence? Would you tell them that you've not left them, that things are hard, but you're with them? Whether that's in their home or their marriage or their kids or their health or whatever it is, God, would you help them today? And thank you for our community that came together to help one another. We thank you, God, for all you've done. In Jesus' name, amen.